the best information. And I think what else a CEO type A anal personality does is really look at the facts, able to boil things down, consolidate very quickly, get to the bottom of things, and just have a strong voice that says this formula is upside down. In business, if your revenues are declining and your costs are going up, you know what you have to do. You have to cut your costs. But in Congress, we just tax. You just try to take more money, from us instead of, I think, cutting costs. So just those kind of basic common sense principles. And it may sound very Pollyanna-ish to think, well, you just go in and you do all this stuff, but I think you have to start. Somebody has to start to say, could you just look at this again? I think it was last week, Secretary Geithner either wrote a letter to Congress or is anticipating writing a letter to Congress asking to raise the limit on our debt at $12 trillion. Because we're capped right now. We're at our maximum. And over the past few years, debt's been at about 40% of our gross domestic product. At the rates we're continuing to grow today, we'll be at 80% of that GDP in the next 10 years if we don't bring down this debt. So that's just the kind of situation that we're in, and I just think I'd have my hand up in the air to say, we have to look at this.
Well, you mentioned in your speech that cutting costs is the only way to avoid debt. And I'm curious, is there an example of a government program you personally would push to have cut?
Well, I think that not being privy to all of the different aspects of government at this point, I don't know. It's kind of a basic thing. Do we need all the people we have in Washington? Don't look at a program for a minute. How many czars does the president have? If you just start looking at the little things, what programs are in place that just may not need to be there at this particular point? Because what happens in government? If something's not working, you just add another layer of bureaucracy on top of it. Look what's happening now. We're going to put in now a consumer protection agency. We're going to have more regulatory groups over our federal banking system, et cetera. Well, we've put in place already those safeguards. Why do we need 2, 3 more agencies? I would double check this number. If memory serves me correctly, we have spent $187 billion implementing the stimulus package, and it's not worked. That's just nuts. So I can't necessarily say I'd go in, I'd get rid of this, I'd get rid of this, but I'd certainly be taking a look at them. Anyone else? Yes.
Who would you recommend we get in contact with if you're looking for volunteers for cold calling, door to door?
Matt.
Okay. Email or...
And I think the email may be, but it's linda2010.com.
There's information on the palm cards. There's information you can fill out. You can mail that in, or you can just talk to me right afterwards, and I can...
Like if you have a business card.
And I would love to have you volunteer, because next spring...
Where are your headquarters at?
West Hartford.
West Hartford.
And because by next spring, we'll really be gearing up, because the delegate convention will be in May. And the delegate convention will then pick the nominee of the party, or we'll have enough delegates also that we'll have a nominee and enough percentage of delegates who are there to force the primary. I believe one way or the other, I'm confident that we're going to have a primary. But thank you. And anyone, we'd love to have you, to be out in the field, knocking on doors, doing all of those things, making phone calls, because we're gonna need a lot of help. It's going to be it'll be a tough campaign, a tough race, but I'm excited. And what I've seen across the state is people are energized about this campaign. They're ready to rock, and I'm ready to rock with them.
Earlier, you said that you were in this till the end. Do you foresee yourself running as an independent if you weren't to get the Republican nomination?
No, what I meant to the end was I expect to be the long horse in the race.
All right.
And beating out the others. I would like to see us come together in the end, so that we have a really strong presence against a Democrat. I won't rule out anything 100%, but that's not on my mind right now, is running as an independent.